I don't get it. I'd love to be an offensive coordinator here. If I have Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and this Baker Mayfield. Yeah, I know he's overrated as hell. But
whoa!
Baker Mayfield met with the media yesterday, and he was very much on message. This is Baker Mayfield. He was asked about Rex Ryan's comments.
It's whatever. In the wise words of Freddie Kitchens, if you don't wear orange and brown, you don't matter. And Rex Ryan doesn't have any colors right now for a reason, so it's okay.
Ooh. I liked the first part. I didn't need the second part. He's an and guy. Now, for the record, I've been an and guy at times on TV, right? Where it gets me into a little bit of sometimes you just talk too long, where you make a point, you make a good one, and then you say and now you've gone too long and maybe you've gone too far. And guy. Listen to it one more time. First one's good. Second one, don't think you need it.
It's whatever. In the wise words of Freddie Kitchens, if you don't wear orange and brown, you don't matter. And Rex Ryan doesn't have any colors right now for a reason, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't think Rex's tenure in Buffalo would be deemed a success. I don't. I think that's fair. I think that Rex Ryan is out of coaching for a reason. I also think that Rex Ryan could be a defensive coordinator if he wanted. He has a really good job working at ESPN. But Rex Ryan took the New York Jets to 2 AFC championship games. That did, in fact, happen. They did beat the Patriots in New England in the playoffs. Like, that did, in fact, happen. So the idea that Rex Ryan doesn't know anything, and that's why he's out of a job right now, is kind of laughable from Baker Mayfield, who hasn't started a full season in the NFL, and a head coach who's 3 games in is 1-2 with what everyone deems to be a stellar roster, or maybe not stellar, but a talented roster. So here's the thing, and this is an important thing for you to remember. Like, look, Baker Mayfield is taking criticism of him as a player, which is, I guess, personal, and taking it personally. And it's a really hard thing to do. Really hard. When you're called overrated as hell, it's really hard to not take it personally. And this is the first line is Baker Playbook 101, which is, they hate us because they ain't us, right? They hate us because they ain't us. If you're not in this locker room, you don't matter, which is great. It's one of the things that's endeared him to so many teammates along his path at Tech, at Oklahoma, and at Cleveland. That he has a way of talking trash and uniting a team and a fan base behind him. But he doesn't have any colors for a reason thing, not needed. Not needed. Right? Just not needed. Even if you feel like they're coming at you personally, that's an unneeded swipe. Especially from a guy who has accomplished some great stuff as a coach. Doesn't make him, Vince Lombardi, the greatest coach ever, but let's not act like Rex Ryan is somehow completely inept as a coach in every different way. In the medium in which he works, he's supposed to be opinionated. Sometimes those opinions can get pushed a little bit over the top. I do think that Baker Mayfield was held in too high a regard considering his actual output against good teams last year. And so if you want that to be overrated, sure. Do I think he's overrated as hell? No, because I don't think most people thought of him as a top 5, maybe even a top 10 quarterback. Maybe they did, and if that's what they think, then yeah, he's overrated. And the as hell thing, that's just, added spice onto an already spicy take. Is it needed? Probably not. Is it an and thing, like he's overrated as hell is an and? Okay, maybe I'll go there with you. But I also think it's really important to point out that this is Baker being Baker and kind of getting himself like, what are you doing there? Right? Yes, Ryan Music, you had a question.
If you're the Browns
whether it's John Dorsey or if John Dorsey starts getting pressure from Jimmy Haslam, because we know he has a long record of being a very hands-on, involved owner. They're at Ravens, at 49ers, and then versus the Seahawks, versus the Patriots, all in their next few games. At what point, whether it's Freddie Kitchens has to give up play calling, I mean, I don't know what. Obviously, I don't think that they're in the business of like benching Baker Mayfield, but a season that had such high expectations. But if you get almost halfway through the season and you only have 1 to 2 wins with this, with a franchise like Cleveland, like, do we think John Dorsey's the type of guy who will make massive changes, or are they finally going to take a more stable approach? And if this year falls short of expectations, they'll just sort of ride it out, let Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield go through some growing pains.
I don't know. You know, like, listen, your questions are great questions. I don't know. Like, the knock on the Browns has always been they've been way too quick to pull the trigger, right? Coaches, quarterbacks, systems, general managers, whatever. I would tell you that based upon the power structure, John Dorsey's not going anywhere, and yet he should hold probably the most accountability because he put this thing together, right? But I think he will be the most safe, and then Baker Mayfield will be the second most safe. My guess is it depends on how bad it goes, or if it goes bad. You know, 1 and 2 is not terrible. And it's not like their division. Pittsburgh hadn't won a game. Cincinnati hadn't won a game. It's not. I don't think Baltimore's as good as their first 2 wins. I think they're fine. Do I think they need to fix some things? Yeah. Do I think Pittsburgh's better than they played? Sure. Do I think Cincinnati's going to give them everything they got? They always do. It's a big rivalry. And I don't think Baltimore's a walk in the park for them. But they should win that division still. So if they win the division, nothing changes. If they don't win, if they don't go to the playoffs and they're decent and they're solid, eventually I would say they try and fix the offensive line, fix some of those broken pieces, and maybe bring in another strong voice on the offensive side of the football.
The most interesting thing coming up will be, I think with Baker, we definitely know that he is going to stay consistent with the us against the world, regardless of how ugly.
That's his deal.
Right.
They hate us, they hate because they hate us.
The interesting thing will be is where things went south with Odell in New York was he started pointing the finger elsewhere, like, blaming Eli, blaming all sorts of other issues, and because he felt like Eli was blaming him, and so that's where that whole relationship got fractured. If Baker Mayfield stays consistent with, hey, we don't care about all the criticism, will Odell turn on Baker Mayfield, or will he finally become a different person? And I think that's where the next situation for the Browns could get ugly, is if Odell starts going rogue like we've seen him done in the past.
I don't think Odell's the blaming would be Baker first. I think it would be the play calling. Because yes, he's being double teamed everywhere. Everywhere he goes, he's bracket coverage. On the other hand, all this kind of bracket coverage that they're seeing, there's ways in which you can still create openings for guys. There's ways in which you can make everybody else wide open. If everywhere he goes, their route combinations aren't great. They're not all that creative. For a guy who hasn't had usually guys that are new, they try and be too creative, too cute, if anything. Seeing that a little bit with the Cowboys this past weekend. First half, felt like they were too cute with their motion. Like, just line up and you're better than the Dolphins. Stop fooling around with it. So I think the initial salvo, if Odell gets a little antsy or bitter, would be more at the play calling first, more than Baker. That'd be my guess. And remember, Odell did have that outstanding game against the New York Jets where they let him get loose. He had the huge catch and run, and even his first game, 7 catches, they were just not letting him get deep. So I understand that, Baker, you hear criticism about you're called overrated, you take it very personally, you react in a personal way, but it's really more about your play, and you have to, on some level, be the bigger man. And I don't think there was nothing wrong with saying, Hey, just like Freddie Kitchens said, you're not wearing orange and brown, doesn't matter to us. But his opinion doesn't matter because he's not a coach in the league currently. Not a strong or great argument. His name is Daniel Jeremiah. He has an outstanding podcast called Move the Sticks. I listen to it. He and Bucky Brooks do a great job. They had Joel Klatt on yesterday's pod, I believe. That was the one I listened to driving home. Just incredibly insightful in regards to the National Football League. Also works for the NFL Network. And you can also hear him call Chargers games as their analyst for the regular season. Let's start with the Chargers. They get Melvin. We assume Melvin Gordon's going to show up at work today or tomorrow. Don't know when he plays. Is that the cure they needed for what's ailed this ailing football team?
Well, it's a piece of good news. So that's a very good thing for a team that hasn't had much of it in terms of players that have been injured and not available. So that I don't think running back has been their big issue the way that Eckler and Justin Jackson have performed. But it is nice to have some reinforcements, and he'll bring a physical element to that run game. So that's a nice addition. But really, Doug, this team's got to clean up the penalties. I think they've had 4 touchdowns called back through 3 games. So you got to find a way to clean up the penalties, and you got to find a way to play a little bit better on the back end of the defense. So those are the 2 big areas they got to focus on.
Okay. Let me ask you about the other side. You saw the Houston Texans play. I felt like Deshaun Watson was the best player on the football field, but you gauged the game from a completely different perspective. Is that the way it felt to you? And has he taken kind of another step?
Yeah, he was outstanding, and his ability to extend plays and get just huge, explosive chunk plays in the passing game and just kind of break your will, defensively, because your mistakes are not, 10, 15-yard mistakes. You make a mistake against him, it's a 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown. So he's just a very explosive player. We've talked about it before. I thought given Tunsil and putting him up front with that group and finally putting those 2 rookies out there with Titus Howard and Max Sharping, they were better than what they've been playing with. If they can give some time, give Deshaun Watson some time, it's a dangerous team. When you get a lead, you've got Watt, who was really, really good the second half of that ball game. Whitney Merciless is more comfortable now that Clowney's gone, kind of back in a natural position for him. It's a really dangerous football team. Yeah,
it does feel different. Does feel different from Carlos Hyde's going to join us later on in the show. How'd he play this weekend?
The Chargers actually did a pretty good job against Carlos Hyde, who had played great in the first couple games. I think that was definitely a focus to try and slow him down. And of course, that's what happens when you have a lot of success. Teams are going to try and take you away, and then the Texans were able to capitalize on that with some huge plays in the passing game, throwing over 300 yards. So even when you don't have the yardage, I thought he had an impact on the game.
I thought Lamar Jackson looked like last year's Lamar Jackson against the Chiefs. I know he had those 2 jump balls. They end up making the yards look better. They stay close to the Kansas City Chiefs. But his inaccuracy, short and underneath stuff, kind of reared its head and felt like Kansas City was not a great defense, kind of exposed him. Fair, unfair critique?
Well, I think some of the misses you saw in that game, you saw him in week 2 as well. When you watch the Arizona game, he has some misses that are. It's just when you're so accustomed to watching NFL football, you're not used to seeing some of those easier throws missed by the margin with which he might miss some of them. So it doesn't look good. But he's been able to overcome that with big plays, and obviously did it with his arm and his legs week 2. It's never going to be it's never going to be really easy on your eyes with him throwing the ball consistently. That's not how he plays the game. But I do think that they have a formula that works against just about anybody in the NFL, save maybe a couple teams, and the Chiefs were one of those. They just they ran away and hid with that early lead.
I want to ask you about Daniel Jones. I know you've kind of done a bit of a mea culpa, right?
No, I mean, I look. It's funny because I think people kind of lump everybody together on what opinions were on players. Daniel Jones was my 32nd player, so I had him as a first-round player. When he was drafted, I said the ceiling for him is Matt Ryan, the floor is Ryan Tannehill. If you get him in the right situation, I think he's got Matt Ryan type of ability. You got to develop him, but there's some things really to work with there. And some other people I know had him considerably lower than that. People talked about him being a backup quarterback. I didn't feel like I was all that harsh on him compared to where other people were. So, I thought it was a great start for him. You look at somebody that, and I heard after the game, Shermer said it. We knew he was smart. We knew he was tough. And you just continue to see him grow and develop. I thought that the smarts and the toughness were on display in that game, but he can't continue to get hit as much as he got hit by Tampa. So they got to work some things out there.
What's wrong with Baker Mayfield?
Well, I tweeted it out, Doug. If you look at the numbers off of run action versus pure drop back, he's two different players. I think in that game the other night he was 7 for 23 with no touchdowns and a pick on pure drop backs. He's a rhythm passer, and it's RPOs, get the ball out of your hand quick, ride the running back, make a quick decision and go. Having him just try and set up with no run fake and set up in the pocket and see everything and deliver throws, that's not him. And I think they better figure that out quick, or this season's going to get away from him, especially when you look at the schedule.
Do you think he wants more of that, or do you think that's Freddie Kitchens as a kind of an immature play caller?
Well, I don't know. I would think that, if I'm Baker, you have some self-realization, realize what you do well and what you're comfortable with, and not try and be something you're not. So, I don't know where that comes from, but collectively they better figure it out, because he has not played well at all. And this is not a team with some of the other roster holes that can win football games without him playing at a higher level.
Why isn't Carson Wentz playing better?
See, I disagree with you on that one, Doug. I think Carson Wentz is playing really well. I think he's played like MVP caliber level well. They had 7 drop balls in that game the other day. And they look at Atlanta. He had them in that game. And Zach Ertz sets up 1 yard behind the sticks.
Or Aguilar catches Aguilar catches the ball against cover 2.
No question, which is a long touchdown. I mean, he's made several of those. So I think Ertz dropped a couple balls in that game. I believe the total was 7. So I think he's the least of their problems. They can't rush the passer, Doug. That's their issue right now. They've got to find a way to get home, because in Jim Schwartz's defense, if your front four doesn't get home, I mean that's the lifeblood of that scheme. So they don't have the secondary personnel on the outside of the corner position to hold up if their front's not getting home. And right now that hasn't happened. So that's issue number 1 for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Kyle Allen goes in, lights up the Cardinals. It is just the Cardinals. It was his first start, no book on him. He was coming back home. There's a lot of great things to the story. But they have some weapons now in Carolina. I mean, I said it. They might well have the best overall back in the league. I know some people are still, say it's Zeke, but I mean, you could make the case at least for Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore is coming into his own. So too is Curtis Samuel, and of course they have Greg Olsen. I mean, have we seen the last maybe of Cam Newton as a starter in Carolina?
Well, this whole foot injury, we'll see how long that keeps him on the shelf. But I do think, if I was in the Carolina front office, I would be okay with saying, all right, hey, Cam, we're going to give Cam, 4 or 5 weeks to rest up, and then we can really evaluate and see what we have with Kyle Allen. But I'm with you in terms of the weapons. When you look at the speed they have at the receiver position, I think they've got some options there. And then McCaffrey, you've got a Pro Bowl tight end in Greg Olsen. They've got some guys you can get the football to. And I thought that Kyle Allen didn't anything special, but what he did was just deliver the ball on time and where it needed to go. But I want to see it in another week, because that Arizona defense, I think they gave up 385 to Matt Stafford week 1. Then I think, Lamar Jackson killed them and put up huge numbers, ran for over 120 yards against them week 2. And now Kyle Allen threw 4 touchdowns. So I made the comment that if I was going to start one NFL game and the Miami Dolphins weren't available, the Arizona Cardinals would be my next choice, who I'd like to play against.
Yeah, and that's who Baltimore started up against, and I think that kind of skewed us in our opinion of Lamar Jackson. Buffalo Bills, 3-0 on the year, but we also have to be reasonable, right? And look at who they started against: Jets, Giants, Bengals, 3 of the other worst teams in the league. How good are they?
I think they have an identity, and that's something a lot of teams are searching for. Now, I think their ceiling's maybe a little bit lower. I think you're probably talking about a high floor, low ceiling team, meaning you're probably looking at anywhere between 7 to 10 wins, because their defense is so good. They're going to be in every game. They can run the football, and that includes Josh Allen being a part of their run game. So they're going to be in competitive football games pretty much every week. Now, this week is a tall order with the Patriots, but most weeks they're going to be in the game. And so, to me, that's enough to get you 7 wins. Now, you find a way to get a bounce here or there, you get to 10 wins. I don't think they're going to be a huge threat once they, if they were to get to the postseason. But I think that's a team that that's a difficult matchup for a lot of people. That defense is really good.
It is really good. It's really, really good. And if Josh Allen's not going to throw it into trouble, if he'll run it instead, I think it gives him a chance. I think it gives him a legit chance. Couple more. Daniel Jeremiah joining us. Move the Sticks is, of course, the podcast. There are some that believe just pay Dak the money. He played 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL the first 2 weeks. And then I saw him last week, and I thought Miami played really hard. And I thought some of the old flaws, the lack of accuracy when he's reloading and going through his progressions, I think the long play works for the Cowboys. Might work for Dak as well, but works out better. Where do you stand on Dak Prescott?
Well, I've had this conversation with a bunch of buddies in personnel departments around the league, and everybody I talk to, maybe we're just all on the same page. We think the same, but we've all been of the mindset, sooner the better if you're the Cowboys. Just get it done, because no matter what you do number-wise, you're not going to like it. You're going to feel like you lost the contract, but you're going to eventually have to do it. And these quarterback numbers are going up so fast, Doug, that even if what you give them right now is a tough pill you got to swallow, and then you look back a year or 2 years from now, you're going to see where the market goes, and you're going to be like, okay, I feel okay about this. And whether or not you think Dak Prescott is a top 5, top 10 quarterback, to me the question is, I do the confetti test. Could you see the confetti falling? Do they have a team with him at quarterback where you could envision the confetti falling on top of him and winning a Super Bowl? And for me, I do. I think he's good enough for what they do, that he can win a championship with him at quarterback. And if that's the case, you pay him. And you're not going to like the number right now, but I promise you'll be okay with it in a couple years.
All right. What about Trubisky? Yeah, confetti test. I don't see the confetti falling, but I think they're a really good team and can play around him. How do you handle the Trubisky thing if you're Chicago?
That to me is where I'm wait. I'm gonna wait. I want to wait and see more. So I'm not convinced at this point in time that's the guy going forward. So I want to wait on that one. The other point I'll bring up real quick that everybody keeps telling me, talking to buddies around the league on the Dak thing, is, dude, get that thing done, because if I'm a team and I have a quarterback, I want to get them done way before this Mahomes thing comes in, because once that one comes in, these numbers are going to be in a whole different stratosphere.
But nobody thinks he's not Mahomes.
It doesn't matter if they think he's Mahomes; they'll be the next one up. And even if you're not going to get to Mahomes' number, it's just going to be a precedent that sits out there, and those numbers continue to climb. So it's just everybody's dealing in one realm right now, and when Mahomes comes in, it's going to be in such a different planet that even if you're asking for, if you think Mahomes is an A and my player is a C, even the number for the C player is going to go through the roof.
Garoppolo, your thoughts 3 games in?
I like Jimmy. I'm sticking with him. I know some people point to a throw or a decision here or there. Guy hasn't played a ton of football, but I see him. I still think he's a good fit in this offense. They win with him. I think they're 9-2 in games he started. I think he's going to be just fine. I think that's a playoff team. I think that's a dangerous team.
Yeah, they get a bye, and then they get a bye, and then they get Cleveland.
They can run the football, Doug, and they can rush the quarterback. And I think that Jimmy Garoppolo's good enough, and that's a team. I wouldn't rule them out as winning that division, as crazy as that sounds. I think they are a very dangerous football team. Yeah,
and the schedule, really early bye for them this week, but then they also it's Monday Night Football, so you get an additional day off. Getting ready, they'll be as healthy as you can possibly be, and then of course a quick turnaround. They get the Rams on the road, but then there's some easier games there to come. In terms of
Nick Bosa is going to only get healthier, dude. Nick Bosa is only going to get healthier, and he is wrecking shop on one leg right now.
Crazy stuff. DJ, great stuff. Love the pod. Obviously, Wish that you were calling more wins for the Chargers. We'll see if Melvin Gordon helps in the near future. Thanks for being our guest.
You're the best. Thanks, bud. See you.